Okay. Bing, bing, bing. We're back. Hopefully my lips aren't too red. Woo, that... I only put in a little bit of ghost pepper salsa to mix in with the medium, and that stuff put in work. So you all had a heck of a time talking. Oh my. I don't know if you've been hearing my cats. They've been in quite the mood tonight. Oh, Bobicus has some suggestions for our paladin to finish up. Hedrika Greyhorn, and her mule mount is Geknir. There we go. I forgot to look for a picture when I was up and about and getting some tea and mixing my salsa and everything, so I'll get something in there. Oh, Shad's going on an adventure. A rabbit? Oh, okay, so a goblin is jumping out. You need a 10 or greater. You attack with disadvantage, though, Shad. So, exclamation point 2d20, and let's see what you have. You need exclamation point 2d20. Five and 16, so 5 plus 7 is, or I'm sorry, 5 plus 2 is 7, and it's a little less than 10, so unfortunately you don't get any EXP. You may or may not be dead, Shadzar. The goblin could have got you. Alright, so we'll want to fill in some details here, and I don't want to focus on that for the section that we're doing right now. Pardon, I have a little bit of tortilla chip stuck in my teeth here. That's something to consider. Now, we have a blank worksheet because we are going to generate an area. What I wanted to bring up with you all, actually, I was a little bit too soon here. What I wanted to bring up with you all, last week we did Klabheim, which was that port city that was tucked in a mountain range, and there was the forest on the one side and sort of the fields and the farmlands on the other. It had the guilds and the intrigue, and that's what we made our campaign last week about, which was Lies Beneath Klabheim. For this week, do you want to extend that and maybe do a city-focused, as I think we have some characters here that could do well with that? Or do you want to generate a new location? Because we started here. Our first character of the week was Radia Latigus. She is an urchin. She is very much like an urban avenger. She's like a Batman, lawful neutral. She can navigate through the city. She can squeeze into small spaces. She can wear heavy armor and light armor and be pretty good in both. Rich is kind of a filler. It doesn't have to be the rich, but it can be someone in this case that she needs to show what life and death are like in the gutters. Now, this is also stringing along ideas for our characters to make a villain or something like that. She robbed an important person, and she's wanted for it. And gold seems like a lot of money to me, and I'll do just about anything, for more of it. So she is very much an urban character, in my opinion. Then we come over to San von Quinster, the flugulist, slash ventriloquist, slash storyteller, slash fire breather. He also operates a lot in an urban environment, right? He's an entertainer. He tells stories. He casts magic, and he performs in front of people, and he needs more people than not. He's a hopeless romantic, right? So he swoons over many people. Also, someone stole his precious instrument, and someday he'll get it back. Again, maybe some villain material. Otherwise, he is performing around and perhaps trying to find his way. It could be through Clabheim, it could be through a different location, but he's still an urban character in my opinion. Delcorin says, oh, I wouldn't mind seeing a destroyed city, says Bobicus. Delcorin says, I have a city theme in mind. Have you ever played WoW before? No, I've only played Final Fantasy 11 and 14. They stole his piano. And then we just made here Hadarika Greyhorn. Now, she is an Outlander, and that's fine. I mean, not everyone can be from the city, at least on a random generation roll. Although that would be interesting if it was. Doesn't mean she can't come into town. She's always picking things up. She earns glory in battle for herself and her clan. She once ran a marathon to warn her village against an invasion of some kind. An injury to the unspoiled wilderness of my home is an injury to me, and she's too enamored of ale, wine, and other intoxicants. So we have a natural person who does well out in nature, looking for ingredients and brewing. Though that being said, she is a healer, she's a brewer, she could operate in an urban environment. It's just that she might not like greed or expansion for greed or expansion's sake of the urban wilderness. But definitely some things to consider. For a place to exist, if you want to go with Clabheim, we can do that. We can generate a new one. And that we're going to need a source of water of some kind. This could be something like a lake, a river, a spring / oasis. Like, we can put the sea, but obviously there would need to be some kind of fresh water. That means, though, that maybe they get their water from wells. There's a water table beneath the lands. Uh-oh. Sheds are shooting out little winky lasers again. Did I miss something of yours, Shad? Limsa Laminsa looks cool. Is that real? Yeah, there's no reason why it couldn't be realistic for D&D, Del. There could be some magical source. Actually, we should also put this as a ground spring or an artesian spring, which would indicate mountains. How about a swamp? Yeah, we could do a swamp too. We can do like wetlands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe put at least one more. What would be another good source of fresh water, right? I mean, we have magic. Wetland / swamp. Lake. We can also kind of say like a series of like ponds in the area. Alright, so I'm seeing a canal city like Venice. That could be interesting. So we can do this. let's. So it seems like we want to do a city, and there's a couple different suggestions here. Swamp. We can do like a, if not really a canal city, we can almost do a raised city, built in a swampland. Delcorn wants to see something fancy, elegant, or regal. Are you all right? Oh, he's huffing. They're playing and just having an absolute blast. Herm. I think we can do something along those lines. So we have, let's look back into history. We have something like the Palace of Versailles. I think that was built in a swamp. It had to be filled in other portions, but that's what allowed for those fountains to exist on the palace grounds. Magical elements would be neat too, like floating lights or orbs around, water fountains that don't seem to have an origin for the water source. Canals are nice too. Okay, so why don't we do this? We'll say that we'll build a swamp. We'll build a swamp city with canals. Usually you find swamps in lowland areas that are open plains, but they're just really like below sea level. Or you find them as kind of wetlands that extend out into the lake. Like we have some freshwater wetlands here in Lake Erie and around the Great Lakes. Or if you go down, obviously, to the Redneck Riviera, and I say that with affection. I was born in Florida. And you go into saltwater marshes as well. Yep, several of the Mayan cities were regal and swampy. So maybe what we could do then, I could have a swamp district. Do you want this to be more like a freshwater marsh or Everglades? Or do you want this to be kind of like a saltwater, like it's in a bay, it's like a lagoon kind of a thing? What would you like to see, everyone? Modeled after Tikal. Unfortunately, that doesn't come to mind offhand, Bobicus. Pardon, I still have a little. So we're seeing Everglades, like freshwater. Okay. So if we're doing that, then we're really going to have... there's not going to be a big feature close by to the city. And we're really just going to focus on the city. So what we can do is we'll frame an area. Let's go to our pencil. We're going to get out a swamp color here. And so we have an entire swampy area that just sort of flows and exists. And to make it interesting, let's kind of have something come in up here. Maybe that'll be a good home for like a weird feature or something along those lines. Here we go. And we'll put another kind of little... We'll put a little one right here. We're going to fill this with the same color. Boom. There's our swamp. Now, swamps aren't all just places of grass. There are trees. Sometimes there are large stands of trees. We can even have... so we can have something... Swamps could be a shallow lake. Yes, that is true too. Ooh. Hope that's not glaring for you here. We'll darken it up a little bit to preserve your eyes in just a little bit. So Venice and Tenochtitlan Chilton. Nah, I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. Are built on islands in a water area. That could very well be. So we have the swamp here, and we can even say that. Let's have the swamp should be fed at least by something, even if it's small. So we can have something coming through like. We can do this. And why don't we do this also? And then we can actually build kind of a nice little island straddling through here. And then we have this kind of murky river. Oh, is it going to do it first time? Hey. Splits and flows out this way. And continues flowing out this way. First try, first try. Bada boom, look at that, nice. Seems to be a common theme for regal areas in Waterten Nok Tietlen. Waterten Nok Tietlen. Oh, hey, thanks, Shadzar. Well, hopefully you'll get those. You know, it's been the epic struggle for Dell to always get those last 6 ones. If the water's coming in, all right, so the water's coming in, so it would be like this way, right? Down. It's going to hit and kind of split here. And so this little land island is going to be a little bit broad like that. There we go. You could probably make it more sandy. There we go. This is a swamp. It's going to have several raised areas. In fact, I'm thinking here in the middle, right? Because we have, if this isn't swampy, it's going to be raised up. This is going to be raised up. So we can probably put some kind of an island here to act as a bridge. Actually, not that. We need to consider if the water's kind of going and it's sort of like doing a slow swirl, like a little stagnation, and then it's trickling out. It's trickling out through the south here. So if that's occurring, there almost needs to be some kind of. If it's still coming around, it's going to have like a. There we go. Something kind of like a kidney bean. And if the water is going to come down and kind of scoop, right, in order to fill up, in order to do this, there's going to have to be something that's guiding some of the water down this way as well. Here we go. First try. Hey, hey. Now, where you get a lot of water, there's going to be a lot of trees and scrub brush. So, to an extent, actually, let's even do this. Let's kind of put like deep swamp and shallow swamp. If the water's bringing silt in, This is probably going to keep moving, and this is going to be deep swamp. So this is going to create kind of a bank over here. We have to think about this naturally, right? Think of the environment, think of physics, think of as water's moving, where is sand and silt going to be deposited? What about rocks and other things? So that's going to kind of like fill up and be a shallower area here, and it's going to come around. There we go. And then we can say there's kind of a big, like, shallow sandbar area. Kind of just like scooting up this way. And then it'll kind of drop off right here. And there's going to be just a little bit kind of a deposit right here. So now it's time for the moment of truth with the fill tool. Do we have our deep swamp? Ah. There we go. Hey, Bernabas, thank you. So Tenochtitlan was famous for its floating gardens. They weren't actually floating, but a magical city could have that. Okay. A magical layer of soil that floats on the water that grows the city's crops. Cool. Well, hey, thank you for the historical advice, Bobicus, because we can incorporate that in here. And thank you for coming along the journey, Barnabas, again. That means a lot to me that you're following. And apparently my my life bar is quickly diminishing because of that. Ah! All right, if we have a swamp city, let's think of the ecology. Let's think of what has been done. There's probably a lot of trees that have been harvested, leaving things like rice paddies or reeds or other quick-growing things. Now, a lot of the buildings could even be made of this or rock. There's nothing saying that maybe this wasn't a quarry at some point in time. I think having like a little copse of trees, especially if we want a regal area, so maybe the drier regal area that looks out over the swamp could be over here almost in its own island. And as such, we have a foresty area that comes in, and it's almost been kind of like scooped out and left to be preserved. Oh, I was doing so well tonight too. It's probably up here. There we go. And of course, we can always use topographical lines if we really wanted to show depth or height. Probably keep a little... So this part of the island, as people are coming in, this is probably going to get developed with some docks and such. But then we have maybe a little park area on one of the pieces of the city. That's over here, right? Some native trees that are still around. And the back end of this one isn't quite deforested. There we go. right. So we want to work in maybe some magical things, or natural or supernatural, not even just supernatural. We have a city then that's going to be built in and around the swamp. I don't want that. Let's put in some constructs first. Let's think about this. If we have a road of some kind, we are going to need it to make sure it's traversing the islands. Whoops. Not that. So we build a bridge here. We build a bridge here. And we'll build a bridge here. Those aren't really showing against the purpley gray. Let's do a little darker. So we're going to want to connect the parts. So there's going to be a road of some kind. That'll come down this way. This is going to be a city part. But this is going to be a bit of a dead end. If this is going to be the regal, like a little bit drier, but it overlooks this beautiful swampy area. Then we need a few, maybe like a few more man-made looking areas. They aren't built on the sandbanks themselves, especially because we kind of want this. We're talking about a canal city, or a city built above a swamp, meaning there's all the swamp underneath that you could take a boat underneath. Mini bridge, never stop build bridge. Yes. So there's going to be the major bridges of that exist, of course. In fact, let's go here. There's probably going to be one going up this way and one going this way. And then this will just kind of continue on in another direction for trade routes and stuff. That's going up that way for its own purposes. Okay. Yeah, that's... I'm just blocking out some of the more, like the major areas. And we can get into detail on stuff like that, because we're actually going to have a two-part map creation this week. But we can go into this. Actually, we can even have one here. This one kind of extends out into the deep swamp. And that will lead to like a tower of some kind. That's built out this way. Just touching right there. We can have a bridge coming in. Now these are going to be the official city parts. There's going to be people who are going to live and work and fish and harvest rice and other things that are going to be all throughout here. There we go. Earth moat? I'm not sure. Do you mean like just instead of a ditch with water that you're just talking about, sort of like earthen ridges instead? And now let's have some smaller, like, nodes of people. We can indicate this with something else. Let's go something like a blue here. Nah, I don't like that right now. We can just fill in this way. Actually, we should probably put in one more structure over here that will act as maybe like a defense or sort of like a militia thing. We can even have a bridge going across this way. And running parallel. So here, kind of butting against the water, we will have another manufactured structure, and this will be a bit of a lookout tower. There we go. An earth moat is a piece of earth ripped from the ground and affixed in the sky, drifting randomly over the surface of Faerun. Ah, they were created during the spell plague. The tower could be built on top of one. I see what you're saying. Let's see. This was the dead end here, which means that we're going to need to make some more sort of tower structures. Why don't we kind of make two towers here that are kind of regulating a bit of the flow and acting as bridges of sorts. There's that. Let's come down this way. There we go. We have plenty of swamp to work with here. And we want this to be a canal city built over a swampy area. Out that way. And this will come down into here. And then the roads will network out as they will. There we go. kind of pushed away from everything that's happening here. I do want to frame in a little bit more woodland. There we go. Some nice crossroads going on. Oops. We need to make sure that we are adding a little bit of flair and a little bit of this pink could represent something in particular. I don't know offhand, but something is growing or something is indicated. This is part of random storytelling. Just make a decision and go with it. I believe Bob Ross calls this the bravery test. Something is along. Maybe it's a rare flower. Maybe it's a type of grain that makes a very powerful intoxicant, right? We just generated a character that, that's her thing. So Bobicus is suggesting that maybe we have some sort of a levitating ground or some sort of a levitating something. Whoops, that was okay. These are canals, so there's going to be there's going to be things like row houses and other things. So if our gray, because we need to build a key here, if our gray is going to be our plazas, our big city districts of public and private property alike, you know what? I think we can put another. Put something here. That would kind of redirect the water flow from the deep to come down this way. There we go. Oops. All right, well, a little bit of pink is going to stay behind there. I like the aesthetics of a lotus-like flower that grows all over the swamp. So that could be this part of the swamp that exists underneath the city. Because we need to make sure, as DMs, right, if we're creating this map, we need to be able to explain basic questions to our PCs. Some might just buy it on its face that, okay, it's a swampy city, cool, I dig that. How or why would people want to build a city on top of a swamp? Why does that make sense? Maybe it wasn't always a swamp. Maybe it used to be something else and then it just filled with water and they adapted. Or what if this lotus-like flower Babacus is something like an aphrodisiac, or it's a delicacy of food, or it creates a powerful drug of some kind of healing or of recreation. That could be a reason why enough time and effort was put into developing a city of some kind over this swamp, and is managing it, and this is a part of their economy and the culture and who it is that they are. Because the aesthetic is important. We want to create beautiful pictures as we describe the districts and everything to our PCs. The floating gardens were extremely productive. That's why the Aztecs made on an island. Also defense and trade. Yep. And so this this seems like that kind of a situation where, too, especially if we're going to deem this as sort of like the administration district or the castle, the royal castle, or something along those lines. This is where the executive stuff happens, right? It's buffered by a forest. You can technically get to it around here, but there's really no trails. The only way to it directly, or that's man-made, is this one bridge coming from this district. And all of these places we should give a name and a theme to. So think about those. If you're in the audience watching this, think about what these parts of the city are. Did we have a rhyme and reason when we were making it? No, we're just kind of filling in space and taking up shape. But we need to assign all of these aspects, right? If we want to have this adventure that goes over, that lasts a campaign, or we want this to be a significant part of what we're trying to present to our players, things need to make sense, at least broadly. There is a resource, yeah. What about a wall around the flowers to block off attacks from the forest? Well, I guess we could always have the lilies growing in the north as well. That is a lot of wall. These are productive people. Raised land. Oh, I see. Not a great wall. We're not stopping the barbarians or the Huns or whatnot. All right. So we have the basics for our adventure, our area. Now what we need to do is add a little bit of spice to it. We kind of put in the one kind of interesting natural element beyond the fact that it's swamps or it's a canal city. And we can always go and describe, like, just because this looks like a bridge, that doesn't mean that this isn't a 300-foot wide bridge and that people live in houses along the sides. We don't have a scale to this. If you want this to be a populous area, do that. Say that the islands are packed and crowded. Say that the bridges themselves are buildings in which people live. In fact, maybe they're even like 2-story bridges where traffic is going one way on one and one way on the other. Now we have 2 stories of great bridges spanning between these islands, and it's a vast city. Or you say that this is a village, like a small town of 1,000 people. And all of a sudden, these districts aren't bustling hives, but instead they are, they're just these developed areas that people are coming and going, or there may be at some point in time, 3,000-4,000 people in the city, but only 1,000 of them are actual residents that live here because this is a trade route, right? We're going to be getting, I almost wish I could weathercast here. So we'll be getting boats and whatnot coming in down the river. There's nothing saying, because this is deep swamp, that the boats can't navigate, right? Because we want a canal city. And so a boat can come down this way, or a boat can come over here underneath the bridges, and we can describe that. So there's commercial activity, resident activity, plenty of ability for there to be illegal activity around whatever, gambling, whatever vices people have. I like the theme of floating and flying. The gardens a lot. The lotus flowers float, the tower floats. So maybe we can do something like this. To work that in, Bobicus, because this is our map, and all of you who are watching out there, please, if you like ideas, throw something out there. If we want to incorporate a floating something in here, we can say that the flowers are connected to the elemental plane of air. We could incorporate something like that. Now, in my own personal campaign, I don't use other dimensions or other planes, so I wouldn't do that, but this isn't my campaign here. If this is a major source of trade, we can say that maybe these flowers have certain properties, and that they allow the flowers, almost like some seaweeds have little gas pouches, and that's what helps keep them up and floating in the air. And so these lotuses do require, the earth and the water in order to form. Though they continue to grow up, and they grow up because the flower itself has some kind of a bubble inside of it that pulls up, right? So a really mature lotus might be floating out of the water and earth and drifting on a root, like a root stem that's still conveying nutrients up 12 feet or so. It would almost be like walking in a kelp forest if you weren't underwater. And so there's just this, for whatever reason, these plants only grow here. Yeah, kind of like a bamboo forest. Think like the Venus flytrap. Venus flytraps are only native to a swampy area in North and South Carolina. Now, if you really want kind of a cool mystery, that swamp was caused when a meteor crashed into the earth and kind of carved a divot, and and as things were forming. So, just saying. A school of magic in the big tower? Yeah, we can host that. There's all kinds of... we can make that into like a wizard's tower or a place of learning of some kind. This doesn't have to be like seedy Thief City, USA or whatever. This can be a place of learning and agriculture. It's just that we're overcoming the challenge of the stereotype, right? If you play Magic, swamps are black mana, and that feels bad things. Bad things can happen here, I'm sure. There's nothing saying that we can't actually have this be a thriving agricultural place. Think of what grows in swampy areas: rice, okra, a lot of other vegetables, reeds, to make paper. Paper is very expensive. And also, wouldn't a wizard's tower want paper? Think like papyrus and whatnot. There's a lot of different culinary things that can be happening in here too. Different ingredients, especially rare ones. So this can very well be, Del, if you're still around, you talked about Limsa Lominsa from 14. They have the Culinary Guild. They have, things like that are happening here. And definitely a lot of commerce. So I like that, Bobicus. We can make a couple of these notes. So we have a freshwater Everglades. That being said, if we're talking Everglades, this is probably going to be in a warmer location. This place probably does not know snow. It probably doesn't know cold. At least nothing, nothing too bad. Nope, I left. All that remains is my unseen servant. So we have a freshwater Everglades. Very agricultural. Possible School of Magic specialty tower. Transportation via water and land. And that's, I mean, if there's a druid, right, you can tree stride, transport between plants, that kind of a thing. But we're talking mundane. Very agricultural with normal crops. Rice, okra, fish, aquaponics or whatever, aquaculture. And that could even lead to some furs, too. Paper production. Rare ingredients for cuisine and alchemy. Sometimes the line blurs between that. Oh, and medicine. There we go. You can brew the leaves of the lotus bamboo like in tea, and it will make a fizzy beverage. Fizzy lifting drinks? Cold is scarce, and the wizards would want to keep it away. Yes. There are probably plenty of wizards down in Florida then. And a rare flower that grows / floats upwards with many different uses. So these flowers themselves, right? We're talking about these groves. You could describe to your players, you get in a rowboat and you could just spend an hour just going down the side of the swamp, and you're passing through all of these, this beautiful scene. You know, you can be like, some kissed a girl, Little Mermaid sort of scenario, right? With the weeping willows, and you have all the fireflies, and then you have these beautiful, maybe slightly pulsing pink lotuses that are just growing and swaying, both with the water and with the air currents, and maybe even like perfuming the air. The Nile is another area where cities on water were common. That is true. That is very true. Yeah, this is coming together, Peru. I think we got some solid stuff, right? We have our 3 adventurers, and we know that they're going to do something. But where are they going to do it? Why are they going to do it? Now, with this week's campaign, we're focusing more on one city area than just a region that we've done before, like with Klabheim. And we can always go back and revisit Klabheim, and we can structure it. We can even just make the city of Klabheim itself. Ancient Egypt was built by the Nile. Yeah, with all the trade, the commerce, the food, everything. All right, now, I like to make sure that a region, a city, something has 3 unique features to it. This way, it can help create psychological gateways / maps in your players' minds as DMs about, oh, okay, so we're near this. They can also help create story hooks or other things along those lines. We have one that we made ourselves, right? We have these rare flowers. Like, we're not going to count the city itself because we're intending on making a city. We have urban characters, and that's fine. Oh, a creature that feeds on the lotus would swim through the air like a fish. Hey, maybe that's where, so the Wizard's Tower might be a school of transmutation or enchantment. Pardon me. And it wants to harvest these because it can make potions to do such a thing. Or you might need to eat a ridiculous amount, but let's say you somehow like ate, if we're talking these little bubbles right in the middle of each of these flowers, you would have to like cool hand Luke this and eat like 60 of these orbs, and then you'd get to like float like a foot or two above. You'd get like a very basic levitation spell effect for a little while. But yeah, it might not be uncommon to see other animals. Probably not fish, right? Because this is living above, and that would be very lethal for the fish. But you might see some different birds or insects or things that just sort of floating around. A frog, right? This is a swamp. Let's say a frog eats one of these, and you just see this big bullfrog just sort of like bulbous on the inside, and it just sort of like lazily drifts around. And that is a species that could have even adapted, and so that they actually will eat those for that purpose, maybe to escape a predator or something. And you as a DM could say, oh, you're stalking through and you see a floating group of these frogs sort of paddling away from an area. Well, that shows that there's danger ahead, right? And now we've just created an environment and an atmosphere that it's making your world come alive, and it's painting this scene for your player characters, or well, your players playing player characters to get into it. All right, let's do a little bit of random generation here. We're going to roll d20s for this. $17. The racial minority are rulers. Whoop. A ruler status here. 13. Contested leadership, open fighting. Our current calamity. A plague or famine. Ooh. Maybe not all is good in Lotus Town, or whatever we want to call it. I mean, Lotus Town's kind of an obvious or lame name, but it can be endearing sometimes. Or if it's not that, if it's not something that's killing the agriculture, it could just be like yellow fever, right, from the mosquitoes in the swamps or something. Plague or famine. Sparks, riots. Known for its rude people. Aside from the other, like, citywide stuff. And lastly, number 11 for a notable trait. Was awful smell. Tanneries, open, sewers. It is built on a swamp, right? And let's give it something of a bit of a mystery, like a weird something or another. A 9. Permanent portal to another plane of existence. This could bleed into the idea that these flowers are somehow influenced by the plane of air. We could even say that this permanent open portal is beneath the waters of the swamp. And what this does, right, because there's water always like bubbling up through it, this can influence the wildlife that's absorbed this magic for a great long while. So we have these special flowers. Maybe this makes all of the swamp water kind of fizzy. And also, since we're kind of like churning up all the stuff in the swamp, that might provide the bad smell. It seems to make sense, and it's cool. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if you just look over and there's the swamp below you, and it just sort of has this constant like haze of like a carbonated fizz and hiss? Are we describing NYC? Yeah, except for the race stuff, everything else seems to fit as far as I know. Oh, awful smell and portal to another plane of existence. Colorado, you say? Oh, I think I get it, because the thing that makes the smell is also the plane to another existence. The noble houses are going around in gangs, purging each other and seeking revenge for past misdeeds. That could be interesting. The leadership is an unstable oligarchy. Yep, and you know what? We've seen this happen in Klabheim, and now as we're making more locations, right? We're making more modules. We could string it together as we're creating a world together too. However, there is contested leadership and open fighting. That could be a result of this plague or this famine. Yeah, an A&W cream soda shop. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? You could just like scoop your hand down in the water and it's this fresh cream soda. Swamp water has a nice head to it at all times. It'd be really fun to go swimming in that, wouldn't it? That actually reminds me, in my campaign world, there is a river that is naturally kind of carbonated because it goes through a geological process. And so if you go swimming in it, the little bubbles will like stick to you and sort of tickle you and fizz around you. And because this water is infused with minerals, it's like tonic water, right? And because it's carbonated, it has this effect where it creates this like head or this fog on the top, so it's very misty water. And so it's the misty tonic river. Nuka-Cola Quantum. Steam methods, yeah. Yeah, that's true. The plague could be that it's not just air bubbling up through the portal anymore. It could be some elemental things that are happening, or it's causing, if you now for some reason the air has become not just like bad smelling, but something is polluting the air. Cool. I think we have a city. Your world has too many nucleation sites. I think we've created a fun city. What I would like to hear from you, though, and I'm going to take another quick break, drink some more tea. What do we want to call this place? Just give me a list of names. It doesn't even have to be what we call this place. Does something cool come out? Because we can name the districts, we can name the river, we can name the swamp. There's trees, there's squirrels, we'll bless them all. So throw out names, throw out whatever. And a good way to do that, use what's around you. Maybe you're taking something from your own fantasy world or campaign setting. You can look around and look and see what's around you, and then just switch up the letters a little bit. For instance, let's call something like Seshza. Seshza. And you get that because you have something like some Szechuan sauce, and so you just go Seshza, and that's a name of someone or something in the town. It's a fantasy world. Who cares? Who knows? I have a Logitech camera, so let's go. Chetigol. 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 Chetigol sounds cool, right? That's a fantasy name. And I get that from looking at a Logitech camera that's in front of me. Fred. We can name something Fred. Secret is that Jalniehar are causing all of the problems. Like, you mean like jinns or genies? Alright, so, short rest. I'll be back 5 to 10 minutes, and we will get things wrapped up.